Got a couple things to say and a timeline to go with it on. So, last year was the very first time I heard of this guy, this Kyle Rittenhouse. I never heard of him till the court verdict came out that he was not guilty. One of my coworkers, who is very liberal, told me that he feared for the freedom of speech. I'm thinking, who is this guy and what's he got to do with anything? And by all accounts, news were saying that, well, not the news per se, just some of the mainstream news, but a lot of the people who are against him were saying that he was a white supremacist. Immediately, my mind goes to, oh, so he killed a few black people. Why would I think black people? Because that's how we Americans are raised up. We are raised with cliches and stereotypes before any kind of reality. To the point that if we hear a white person is racist, we immediately think that they hate black people. Before any other race, it's always going to be black people. If we hear a black person is racist, we always think it's going to be a white person that they hate. That's just how we're raised up. There's no way to go around it, no way to justify it. Really, there's no way to justify that kind of racist thinking. So, anyway, I think, oh, I guess that is bad news. And then, within that same week, I see a picture of Kyle's 3 victims. And I'm like, wait a second. They're all white. Something's not making sense. People are literally labeling him a white supremacist, and all 3 people that he shot were white. I decided to do a little bit of digging, and it doesn't take much. A tad bit of digging, even for an amateur, a complete imbecile like me, to look into things and find out none of these 3 guys were actually good people in the slightest. One happened to be a pedophile, and not just a blanket term pedophile, like people are just throwing left and right today, but a literal child rapist. He had convictions against him. And yeah, he was the definition of what a pedophile actually is. Another happened to be a girlfriend beater, domestic violence, and a gun running thug. And the third person that was shot, not killed, but just shot, was some other kind of thug. But all 3, by their records, their police records, their rap sheets, were not good people. So I'm completely confused by the mainstream news narrative and the people who are anti-Rittenhouse that he's nothing but a cold-blooded, murdering, racist thug. And, well, if they're wrong about him being a white supremacist, considering the 3 victims were white men, what else might they be wrong about? So I do a little digging and check out the evidence that's presented by the court. Not one shred of evidence seems to suggest that he is anything like what people are saying. They're saying he went out to these areas and treated the areas of protesters like they were school shootings. Let's just go ahead and say it. We're so used to school shootings anymore. It's hardly even a controversial thought anymore, to be frank about it. And they're making him seem like he's just going out there, bam, 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 bam. And yet, there's not one bit of footage where he's actually just going out purposefully looking for anyone to shoot. There was actually drone footage I saw that showed him holding a gun out, telling a guy, I don't know which one of them, to back off. And you can tell by his lips, he's urging the guy more than once to back off. And the guy's just charging after him. I think it was Rosenbaum, the child rapist. And when the guy just keeps charging at him, none of the crowd is paying attention to what's going on. They're all concerned with their own stuff, their own being. And after warning him a couple times to just back off, and the guy doesn't, that's when he pulls the trigger. Then everyone scrambles. And this piece of evidence tells me that no, this Rittenhouse kid wasn't going around shooting everyone that he could. The body language and everything seemed to suggest he was actually defending himself and giving this guy that he likely didn't even know a chance to back off. I don't know what he saw in the guy's face or anything really. I just know that the body language did not suggest a cold-blooded murder. And next thing I hear, there's a Black Lives Matter rally in one of the southern states, I forget which one, actually chanting, "Say his name," with, I think it was Rosenbaum again. And I just think, he's not even black. You idiots are chanting for a white guy. He's not a martyr for you. Why are you chanting for a literal pedophile? Yeah, they make less sense every year, if not every week. And people are catching on to their hypocrisy. That's just another stupid case of them showing literally their true colors. So overall, there's not a bit of evidence to support the narrative that he's a white supremacist. Also, no evidence to support that he's a cold-blooded murderer. But people are now suggesting the courts were actually tampered with, or that they're too Republican. They're suggesting this or that. Some even saying he is no Christian. He is a horrible example of what it means to be a Republican. Then again, to them, everyone who's Republican isn't a horrible example of being a Republican. There's no such thing as a good Republican in their eyes. Much like how so many Republicans think there's no such thing as a good Democrat. No wonder I hate the idea of joining either side. So, to this day, every time Kyle Rittenhouse tweets anything, there's always a whole mass of people telling him to go bugger off, or maybe you should follow that thou shalt not kill commandment if you're going to be preachy. Well, if they're going to be preachy, maybe they should start reading the Bible in context instead of preaching all kinds of hypocrisies themselves. Now, am I a Kyle Rittenhouse fan? I actually cannot say so, one way or another. I feel like you'd probably have to be a Republican to be a full-on Rittenhouse fan. I'm actually a fan of letting the evidence speak for itself. From what I've seen, the evidence speaks quite clearly that he did what he needed to do to survive, and everyone else is distorting the facts as much as they can to be self-righteous and self-pious that they can never be wrong in their own ideas of how everything looks. And if you happen to disagree with anything that we say, you are a horrible, racist Republican bigot and need to be jailed, if not, shot yourself. Seriously, that's how a lot of people are actually reacting. Legitimately throwing death threats on Twitter. I thought that was illegal to do. Hmm. So anyway, yeah, I don't think he was actually thinking of self-preservation. Or, no, correction. He was thinking of self-preservation. He was not thinking of the news circus that would be happening or the kangaroo court of the social masses when he pulled the trigger to defend himself. So, a few things to consider.